Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because honestly, we're unpacking something that affects pretty much every single one of us, whether you're at work or just going about your personal life. If you've ever tried to train a team on a new piece of software and just hit a total wall of blank stares, well, you already know instinctively that teaching an adult is way different than teaching a child. But why? Today, we're going to completely break down the anatomy of the modern adult learner. Okay, let's dive into this. It really all starts with one fundamental question. How do adults actually learn? I mean, think for a second about traditional schooling. We automatically picture someone standing at the front of a room, basically pouring information into the minds of a captive, relatively blank slate audience. Well, it turns out that old school method completely misses the mark once we grow up. The reality here is that adult learners need a totally unique approach, both psychologically and practically. They simply don't absorb information the same way. They aren't empty vessels waiting to be filled up, right? They're highly complex individuals who need new learning to actually fit perfectly into their already established worlds. To really grasp this, we're going to follow a clear 5-part agenda today. 1. Meet the adult learner. 2. Academic, driven by purpose. 3. Social, juggling life's roles. 4. Emotional, respect and autonomy. And 5. Cognitive, practical problem solving. Section 1. Meet the adult learner. So, you know how pedagogy is the traditional science of teaching kids? Well, Malcolm Knowles championed something called andragogy, and that is the core framework for adult education. Honestly, it's a complete paradigm shift. Think of pedagogy as writing on a totally blank slate, whereas andragogy, it's much more like updating a highly complex operating system. It completely shifts the dynamic from a dependent learner to an independent, self-motivated one. Adults just operate on an entirely different wavelengths. Section 2. Academic, driven by purpose. Whenever an adult steps into a learning environment, 3 very distinct characteristics kick in right away. First up, they absolutely want to be self-directed. They don't just want to sit there and passively take instructions. They want to guide their own journey. Second, they are fiercely purpose-driven. An adult needs to know exactly why they're learning something. What's the goal? What's the actual utility here? If that purpose isn't crystal clear, they check out. And third, experiential learning. Adults are constantly filtering new concepts through their past experiences. So if you teach a manager a new conflict resolution framework, they aren't just memorizing step 1, step 2. No, they're instantly replaying their last heated argument with a difficult employee to see if your theory actually holds up in the real world. Moving right along to Section 3, social, juggling life's roles. Unlike a kid whose main job in society is basically just to be a student, adults walk into any room carrying this massive, invisible backpack of competing roles. Just look at how these stack up. First, you've got heavy work responsibilities, deadlines, career progression, managing entire teams. Then, on top of that, family duties, chasing after toddlers, supporting a partner, maybe looking after aging parents. And wrapping all of this up is a really high level of social maturity. I mean, they've lived full lives. So when they finally sit down to learn, all of these competing responsibilities are just constantly running in the background. Their time and their mental bandwidth are literally highly limited commodities. So the crucial point here is that learners aren't just students. They're whole, complex people with incredibly demanding lives. Try telling someone who is currently juggling a sick toddler and a massive software migration at work that they need to sit through a 3-hour theoretical seminar. Yeah, no way. Any training materials, workshops, or explainers absolutely must deeply respect this social maturity and these external life demands. Because if your content is inefficient, overly theoretical, or just plain waste their time, you aren't just failing to teach them, you're actively conflicting with their roles as employees, parents, and adults. You literally have to honor the reality of their busy lives. Now let's look inward for Section 4, emotional, respect, and autonomy. Intrinsic motivation is the absolute engine of adult learning. Sure, kids might memorize facts to get a gold star or a good grade, an external reward. But adults, they learn primarily because of a deep internal desire. They want to master a skill to feel more confident, or maybe to solve a really specific, frustrating problem at work, or honestly, just to satisfy a deep personal curiosity. That internal drive is exactly what fuels their focus. If you want an adult to learn, you simply cannot rely purely on external mandates. You've got to tap into what they internally value. And that internal motivation is really balanced on 2 vital emotional needs, the need for respect and the need for autonomy. Since adults bring so much life and experiential learning to the table, they have this deep emotional need for that experience to be acknowledged and respected. And showing that respect directly feeds into their need for autonomy, meaning the need to have a real voice and some control over their own learning journey. When you treat an adult learner as a respected peer, you completely unlock that intrinsic motivation we just talked about. Imagine forcing a 15-year industry veteran to sit through a basic intro module without giving them any way to test out of it. You've instantly violated their need for respect and autonomy, and honestly, you've lost them before the training even begins.
Finally, Section 5, Cognitive Practical Problem Solving. Under the hood, you've got two massive cognitive forces working simultaneously. On one side, there's crystallized intelligence, which is basically decades of accumulated facts, skills, and lived experiences. And on the other side, there's this relentless demand for practical problem solving. Adults simply do not have the patience for pure abstract theory. If you teach an adult a new Excel shortcut, for instance, their crystallized intelligence immediately asks, okay, but how does this save me 20 minutes on Friday's budget report? They are constantly analyzing and comparing your new data against what they already know to be true, hunting for that immediate utility. So you must provide practical solutions that align perfectly with what they already know. Wow, we have covered a tremendous amount of ground today. We've mapped out the baseline of the adult learner, their academic need to be purpose-driven, the very real social reality of juggling heavy life responsibilities, that emotional craving for respect, and, of course, the cognitive demand for practical problem solving. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought. Turn the mirror back on your own communication strategies and ask yourself, do your training materials actually respect the autonomy and crystallized intelligence of your adult audience? Because I promise you, once you start building your content around these realities, you transform from someone just merely delivering information into someone who is truly empowering the adult minds in your audience. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really can't wait to see how you apply these insights.